and welcome to Lean In Leander. I'm your host, Andrew Naudine, and in this episode, I want to start with an item that was on the City Council agenda back in November of 2017. That item was the approval of an economic development agreement between the city and Lone Star Tangible Assets. What came of that is the Bullion Depository here in Leander. I think it's a great success story. It shows what the city can do when they put their mind to it and create the types of incentives and working agreements that deliver a very, very nice project, not only for the immediate needs of the city of Leander as far as business development, but also for the long-term needs for infrastructure and things of that nature. I had the opportunity to sit down with the director of the Bullion Depository, and we touched on that and a couple of other subjects in this week's episode of Lean in Leander. I hope you enjoy it and maybe learn a little thing or two or three, who knows. All right, guys, we're here at the United States Gold Bureau, or the Texas Bullion Depository, right? I think there's a couple of names for this. I'm here with Matt Ferris, who's been kind enough to spend some time with me. Matt is the president of Lone Star Tangible Assets. So, Matt, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it.
Very nice. I wanted to do this because a lot of people, well, let me phrase it this way. I think a lot of people are aware that this is somewhere in Leander, but they really don't know much about it.
Right.
So I thought it'd be a good idea to just kind of come in, and because I had some contacts here, just kind of, let's have a conversation and talk about
Happy
this,
to.
Let people know exactly what this is and what it brings to the city as a whole. So,
and we're glad to be here. We don't necessarily advertise that we're here for
Right.
some obvious reasons
Right.
that could be derived, but Leander is a great place. It's been a great home for us, and we're recently here. We started construction in 2019 and finished right before the pandemic really kicked off, so we kind of got lucky on that.
Right.
And moved in January of 2020. Sorry, we're in 2021 now, so I have to think back at January 2020, and it's been great ever since. So
yeah, I'm sure that you guys are happy that you did get in pre-pandemic. Just material costs and everything else coming into play now.
Material costs, labor, etc.
I can only imagine how much that would have been for a facility such as this, because I know there's probably heavy-duty securities and things of that nature that would have played
and a lot of concrete, a lot of steel, things like that. So yeah,
steel alone. I know there's probably a lot of that here.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, so Leander's home. You guys are here now, and I know that there was a period of time where the city was promoting the fact that hey, we're landing this business. So I kind of want to talk about a couple of different aspects of what it is that you guys do here. But let's start with why Leander. Why ultimately did Leander land this?
Sure. So we were in the Austin area before, near the Domain, as Lone Star Tangible Assets. And then if you look back, there's some press on it and some things about the history of the Texas Bullion Depository, the state passing that legislation. And once we won that contract, and we can go back into details on that maybe a little bit later in the segment, but we started looking for a new home because our business was growing. We were expanding, and we needed a bigger footprint, a bigger area. So we started looking around the area. Of course, at that time we had, I'm thinking back to 2018 now, or 2017, we had maybe 50 employees, 60 employees at that time. All of them in the area, so we certainly weren't going to move to Houston or something like that.
Right.
We all are, everybody's families are here and their lives are here. But we needed more space, and we thought it'd be best to get this particular type of business out of the Austin proper area. Mm-hmm. So we started looking at all the surrounding communities and having some conversations with the city leaders, et cetera. And I have to say, Leander was exceptionally forthcoming, helpful. They helped us identify a few locations, some ways we could help get infrastructure in. It was one of the things when you're building a facility this large, if you don't already have the infrastructure in that particular piece of property, you're going to have to bring in sizable sewer, sizable water supply, power, et cetera. And this particular corridor right here was ideal because the city wanted to expand the businesses up here, right, that were in this area. And there was 10 acres available, which was kind of our minimum, or kind of actually was our target sweet spot of about 10 acres we needed. So we found available land in Pflugerville, Round Rock, some other areas, certainly up in Liberty Hill, there was plenty available. But then it's a balance between you don't want to get too far away from where everybody lives because you don't want to lose all your staff because the commute's too long. You hopefully want to get somewhere where it's affordable for them to have a nice lifestyle and a good place to live. And Leander just quite frankly checked all the boxes. So it was once we finished all the interviews with the different cities and lined up all the pluses and minuses, it was very clear Leander stood out as the top, and so we put a contract in on the land and acquired that, and here we are.
That's great. Yeah. That's awesome. I appreciate you helping us understand a little bit of what went into that, because I talk about that a lot when I do have conversations with businesses in the area. I know that we were talking earlier, you mentioned the Northline episode, same kind of conversation. It was like, well, okay, why? And then, what kind of work do you need to do? So you guys, and infrastructure is a real hot topic in Leander right now. So I do want to touch on that, but I'm not going to position you. I'm not going to put you in a corner anywhere. When you had to come in and do that infrastructure, was that something that was part of the way that you developed the contract for this building, or was that something that was like, we've got to do this in Leander? I mean, how much of a plus and minus was it necessarily for you?
Well, it was it was, I would say, overall a plus, because the city of Leander, and it's public record, right? So they gave us a incentive agreement for coming here, as well as help. They contributed to the taxpayers of Leander contributed to the infrastructure that went in here. And when I say infrastructure, I don't mean our building.
Right.
The sewer line, the gas line, that all runs along the road, bring that over from 183, et cetera. Now, you might think, well, that was just benefited this facility, but actually no, because what happened is, as soon as we brought all that utilities in, the 10 acres next door to us, the value jumped substantially, and we don't own that, and there's other businesses now looking at it because they can come and build their facilities, and it's already right there. They just tap into it.
I'm glad you went there, because that's exactly what I was trying to surface with that question was, and a lot of people will do this, and the reason that I have that kind of question in there, and again, thank you for answering the way that you did, because it surfaces the results of a decision. And there's a lot of conversation, as I mentioned, in Leander right now about infrastructure, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, etc. And I think it's good to shine a light on what would, in my view, be a success story. I'm like, okay, well, here's where it worked. Because, yes, you guys did that, and yes, there were some tax abatements, et cetera, so forth. But at the end of the day, now the infrastructure is here.
Yeah.
So now the expansion can actually occur because you now have that baseline infrastructure in place.
And a couple things beyond just what Leander contributed to, and we ultimately did the work with our contractors. The city signed off on it, that we were doing it the way they wanted it done, as far as the utilities coming down the street and everything. But we went an extra step, and we put like stub outs across the street to the other properties for some of the water and sewer. So they're, as far as I know, the city would have to answer the question directly, but most of the properties right around us are basically plug-in ready. They can just get to the street, and then the utilities are right there.
Right, that's awesome.
So it does make it very attractive for, hopefully, and we're really hopeful. I've talked with some of the city leaders about this extra space over here going towards 183 on Heritage Grove, where we're located, that hopefully we get some more businesses over here. And of course that all depends on what investors or businesses are interested in. The city can't control all of that, but it sounds like there's the interest is growing and growing and growing, which is really good. And of course the Northline project, we didn't even know the Northline project, the details of that specifically when we signed this agreement. I think it was fairly new then. But that's just going to be huge for this area. And
I think so.
We're so close to it. It's great. All of our staff members are so excited about it. We don't have to drive down the domain anymore. It'll be right there.
Right. No, and that's a very, very good point. I know it's hard because a lot of times the conversations and the discussions are very, very now centric.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, what about right now? And well, I get that, but at the same time, all right, take a little bit of a larger look at things here, okay? Because these are the things we're trying to accomplish. So you've got to have some of these growing pains and some of these, sometimes the deals will make people mad, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, look, it was a good deal because X, because it actually helps everybody else.
And that thought process transcends even the Bullion Depository or Loan Stars facility here.
Absolutely.
When you look at like infrastructure, how we built this facility, because of the nature of what we do, we always had to make the assumption that we need to be able to take care of ourselves here. And I'm dipping a toe into the winter events of 2021, and which is a hot topic on infrastructure, right? With the water system and everything else. We have redundant generators here. The one that we spec'd for this facility was a little bit overkill, and at the time we're like, do we really need that good?
Now
And
you're glad you had it.
And we ran on that thing for days on end without. We never lost power at this facility. Never lost any operational capacity because of our planning. And it's one of those decisions you have to make. Well, hey, I got to spend a little more today to be ready for that event down the road, because if you wait for the event to happen, it's too late.
Yeah,
right.
Agreed.
So,
agreed. I think that's interesting. I'd love to kind of drill down on that, but I'm not going to, because I think I want to kind of stay to what we're here for, which is again, the vision of this particular project and how it benefits Leander. So you were saying you had like about 50 employees at the domain. You've increased your employee roster substantially, correct?
Yeah.
What's that look like now?
I believe it's about 160 today.
160
people? Yeah.
Wow.
Now, again, I have to go check with HR.
No worries.
Plus or minus 5.
I'll let you slide
5,
on that. Okay.
But it's right about 160. And, internally, we have already had discussions about we need to start planning to possibly expand this facility. Again, that was part of having 10 acres.
Right.
And we're pre-permitted for another building on this site.
Right.
Which is great, because we want to bring more and more people to the Leander taxpayer base here, right? And that's what I think the city knew that. Like they knew that we would ultimately do that. And whether it's our employees that have relocated from, they were either down in Austin or now live up here and they own a home in the city of Leander, or they're new employees that have come on board and moved here for the job. It's significantly expanded the tax-paying base here. And,
for sure.
I think the city told us we're the third largest private employer in Leander.
More than likely.
Yeah, I mean, you got HEB and there's a big construction company, and then of course you have the city and the school district, which have to kind of those are government. So
you kind of set those aside. If we're talking about just businesses,
I think we're number 3.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and we're still growing. So
no, I think that's great, and obviously it accomplishes exactly what the city would have set out to do in the first place. Is you always want to have those centralized employers. Who again, it's everything that happens after that. People move here, or they relocate, or they come in as new employees. And if you're expanding, you were at 50, so you've more than doubled in 2-3 years.
3 years probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
so
part of it you were limited on. You couldn't actually expand until you got here,
right?
Because we had space limitations at the old facility. So even though we had maybe people we wanted to add, there was no space for them. Right. So and then once you get here, you kind of have to reset, and then so. But then it took off pretty substantially.
Well, I mean, I still think that's pretty substantial. That's a pretty significant number considering the lost year that you have in there. Because there's an entire year that you lose. Yeah. And the fact that you're already at 173 years into the project, I think is pretty good. I think that's to be commended. So I know that the depository is the first state-administered depository of bullion established in the U.S. Is that something that is new to depositories? I mean, I know the Fed.
Yeah, so
there's a Fed depository in Houston that I was familiar with. I knew that one.
Yeah, well, when you talk about precious metal depositories, the only real federal one is the United States Bullion Depository at Fort Knox, commonly called Fort Knox.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Fort Knox is actually the military base that it sits on. The name of the Bullion Depository is the United States Bullion Depository.
Gotcha.
And that's administered under the United States Mint. At Lone Star Tangible Assets, our companies are one of the largest clients of the United States Mint. So we have a close relationship with them. And the Mint has various facilities around the country where they produce precious metal products. The primary one, the largest probably being West Point, New York, where they store a lot of metal at. That's why I mentioned that. So even though it's a minting facility, it also functions as a depository. But that's only for federal government assets, so nobody can use it other than the feds, and it's not state; it's federal government. So when this legislation passed, which, for the record, Lone Star had nothing to do with the legislation. We didn't even know about it.
Proposition 9.
Proposition 9 we did. Proposition 9.
Okay, so this is a separate
I'm talking about the legislation that created the Bullion Depository.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That which was in 20. I think they tried it in 2013 and it didn't pass, and then 2015 it passed.
That's about that timeline.
Yeah,
sounds
and
right.
we got involved in it somewhere around 2016 when we read about it in the news, quite honestly. And I reached out to some people, and they were curious for information at the state, so we helped them, here's some things you need to know, and so on and so forth. And then ultimately went on to respond to their RFP, and here we are. But the reason I was telling you that was you were asking about the only state-administered depository. So yes, this is the only one that is established by law in the United States at a state level. There are some other states that are watching very closely what we're doing here in Texas, and they, may or may not. I mean, those state legislatures will make that decision. Try to do their own thing. Texas, I think, has done it right in the sense that they have not burdened the taxpayers with it, because it is. And I told this to this state officials when we were getting started. I said, look, this is going to be a little bit entrepreneurial, right? Because it's never been done before. We're an entrepreneurial organization, so I think you picked the right company to help you out with this. But it's not just going to instantaneously be a success overnight, right? We have to build the infrastructure for it, part of which was this building. And that took some time, and it's growing well. So I think those other states are watching it and seeing what happens. Of course, they're also, I don't want to delve too much into this because maybe it's not the right topic for your podcast, but I think they're also watching what's going on with the federal government and laws created there around whether it be tax or wealth, confiscation, et cetera, and trying to make those decisions of whether or not they want to set their state up as one of those havens for that to the extent they can.
Gotcha.
Texas is already a step ahead of everybody because they've already done it, right?
Right.
So,
right.
It's one of the. I was watching a recent news episode about precious metals, and they had a map of the whole United States and what states are the best for precious metals, and Texas was like the color that's the best because we have no sales tax on gold or silver, and then of course we have the depository. There's a lot of laws around keeping it confidential for people if it's stored in Texas, et cetera. So. A lot of good, just positives in general. Texas is ahead of the game.
For wealth and wealth maintenance from a tax perspective.
Tax, just ambiguity or keeping it private, and there's just the laws in Texas are very favorable to protecting the individuals that have those assets and protecting their right to have those assets versus the other options out there.
And these are literal physical assets when we're talking about literally gold coins, gold bars, whatever,
correct.
Precious
Silver,
metals.
platinum, palladium, correct.
Right. I was going to ask that question. So
we don't deal in any like futures contracts or anything. That would be a regulated financial investment firm. Some might call them a Wall Street firm or something, or household names that you would know, a TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, whatever. They do that. We deal with the physical assets, and this is my personal opinion, but they're. Anybody can do their own research and kind of, validate it themselves. But I think if you're going to own gold or silver or platinum or palladium as a hedge against, which is what most people own it for, a hedge against other things that could happen in the market or your other assets, right? It's non-correlated to some of those other assets that most people would own in their 401k or whatever it may be. You want to own the physical stuff because it's gold and silver to me is a lot like. It's like firearms. If you wait to buy it till you need it, you can't get it.
Right.
You need to buy it when you need it.
Right.
When you don't need it. Buy it when you don't need it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, you can't get
sense.
it. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I've never actually held physical, but a number of years ago, I diversified, and it was funny because my wife had her with the 401k. We were both working at the time for companies. I'm a little bit more self-employed now. But I turned everything to precious metal. All of my investment was in precious, and it was a hedge against what she was doing.
Yeah.
I never actually had the physical metal, mind you, but still, and it worked out okay. So at the end of the day, I was like, all right. I think it's very interesting. So where do you get people coming from? I mean, am I a guy in Indiana, and I'm like, hey, I've got gold, I want to move it to Texas? What's the advantage of doing that?
Yeah, that we do get that a lot. So. The U.S. Gold Bureau, which is owned by Lone Star Tangible Assets, is an internet-based retailer of precious metals. So we deal with people all over the United States. So we may get someone from Indiana, we may get someone from Alaska, Hawaii, whatever it may be. And then I mentioned earlier those tax laws. So it's kind of interesting. There's I believe it's still 13. The tax laws are changing somewhat rapidly on a state level as it relates to sales tax, which is regulated locally, at least at the state level, sometimes even down to the county or whatever. But some states, there's 13 or 14 of them, they charge sales tax on precious metal sales, which it's been a big debate for a long time. I have lobbied and argued with the U.S. Treasury Department, and just the federal government moves slow, and depending on what administration you have, they're either favorable or not favorable to it. Mm-hmm. That gold coinage, gold bars, silver, etc., should be treated like currency, especially the stuff from the U.S. Mint, because it actually is authorized as currency. It has like $50 written on it. It hasn't gotten there yet. It's treated as an asset that can be taxed with, capital gains or collectible taxes. And people, I don't think that's right. But again, that's maybe for a separate segment. But my point is, sales tax is also another burden on that at a state level. Well, there's 13 or 14 states that charge sales tax. So if you are buying, say, $100,000 in gold, whether coins or bars or whatever it may be, and you live in Minnesota, which is, I believe, one of the states that charges tax, and I'm not sure their tax rate, but let's just say it's 7%. It's okay. About that, right? So you have to pay $7,000 in sales tax on $100,000 in gold that you're buying for your investment portfolio as a hedge against something else. But if you were to go buy stocks or bonds or something else, you wouldn't pay sales tax. Right. You pay capital gains if you keep it longer in a year, but you're not going to pay sales tax. So Texas has no sales tax. So the question came up some time ago, well, what if somebody in Minnesota buys precious metals from, say, U.S. Gold Bureau, for example, here in Leander, Texas, and then they open an account at the Texas Bullion Depository, also here in Leander, Texas, and they pay for it, and they say, you know what, just ship it, deposit it, or ship it to my account at the Texas Bullion Depository. In our case, it's in the same building, but it could be another dealer in Houston, right, or something, and they ship it into their account here at the Texas Bullion Depository. Well, the state attorneys took a look at it and said, as far as we can tell, commerce laws basically say that if the stuff never shipped out of the state,
there's no tax.
There's no tax.
Yeah.
So a lot of consumers in those states are figuring that out, right? So that's helpful with those folks, and it makes sense. I mean, you're not going to pay $7,000 in sales tax on an investment asset. So then you just leave it here, and then if you want to sell it at a time later, you can either sell it through U.S. Gold Bureau or ship it to another dealer in Texas somewhere, and as long as it never leaves the state, you're good. So
interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I learned something today. I mean, I kind of knew some of the tax structure there, but walking in, I was wondering about that. I was like, if I'm somewhere else and I buy it here and I keep it here.
So we do have, we have everything from people shipping it in on their own, buying from some other dealer, doing that, buying from us. We have people that drive it in. We've had people show up in RVs that drove in from a long way away and brought in, and their secret compartment, and here's all this gold and silver coinage they're depositing.
I may edit that piece out. I don't want people to know that people are driving around in RVs with gold. I might start.
You have to know which RV it is.
Yeah, but anyway, that's interesting. That is super, super interesting. So from a Leander-centric perspective, again, I mean, we talked about how this affects the tax base. As you employ more people, let's just kind of talk about that a little bit. You're employing more people. Those people are either living or spending in Leander. So it is increasing incrementally the amount of tax revenue that is generated in the city for the city.
For sure.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, and then, of course, those folks that buy homes, with property
even
taxes, the real dollars they're contributing is significant.
Right, because I would imagine that, based on where you're at, your location, it's pretty close to some of the more traveled fast food restaurants and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
People typically stay close to where they work. They don't, or unless they bring their own lunch.
Yeah, we a lot of times when we're really busy, and we have been ever since the pandemic, we've been extremely busy. We'll bring lunch in for everybody a lot of times. So when we're getting it from a local restaurant around here,
right.
So we were happy to be doing that during the pandemic because we know how the restaurants were really struggling.
Absolutely.
So
good point. So what is it that I know we were talking about physical sales, but I see commercials at late night TV,
sure.
Selling the gold coins or whatever. Is it that kind of stuff that you guys do, or you do something completely separate?
We run the full gamut of anything physical. So yes, depending on what commercial you're talking about, because I'm not sure which one you're referencing. But whether it's gold bars, coins, silver, platinum, palladium, rare coins, things that are considered more collectible, but it's derived from gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and it's the physical stuff.
So so you have a sales team here.
We have a group of traders, and that's one of our largest group of employees here in the facility. I couldn't tell you the exact number, how many there are, but that's one of our largest group, and they are talking to customers of U.S. Gold Bureau, and then we have another company called Wholesale Coins Direct that are owned by Lone Star Tangible Assets, and they're talking to them, on the phone. If that person has given us their information, we don't contact anybody unless they give us their information.
Okay.
So they went on our website, maybe they placed an order, or they filled out a form and said, "Hey, I'm interested in learning more about it, and here's my name, phone number, email address," and we'll either send them some information via email or give them a call, or they call us. And in our business, as you could probably, if you think about it for a minute, it would make total logical sense. Like once you get over a certain dollar amount, I mean, we all buy all kinds of stuff on the internet these days since the invention of Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm super comfortable buying, a $50 item on Amazon, and even if it's with a third-party seller, if it shows up, it shows up. If it doesn't, I'll figure it out.
I got you.
Right? But you start getting into $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, they usually want to talk to somebody.
Right.
So that's what happens.
Okay.
We may have a lot more e-commerce transactions that are $1,000 and below, right? But you start getting over, and every household's different where their threshold is. I mean, sometimes we'll have an order come in for $500,000. We never talk to the person. Mm-hmm. It just happens online and is what it is. It's our folks are talking to those folks to help them set up a portfolio that works for them. Because not everybody needs an allocation of whatever dollar amount they're going to do. 25% gold, 25% silver, 25% platinum, 20% palladium. That's never the case, right? It's what are you trying to accomplish? There's different rules and regulations depending on the products and things, whether it be tax or whatever it may be. So that folks are trying to accomplish.
So do you have, again, from that perspective, you have, a gold coin, whatever that gold coin might be. Maybe it's a collectible gold coin. Let's just say that for argument's sake. Are you making those here? Or is that something?
No, we are not
no
in the
minting.
Business. Yeah, we don't make anything. We are just a provider. We're almost like the platform. Like if you consider us to be like eBay, right? Where we are making a market in products that a bunch of other people produce.
Gotcha.
So like the U.S. Mint, we're the largest customer of the United States Mint for a lot of their product segments. We have relationships with the Canadian Mint, and then we have relationships with a number of different private refineries. There's a large one called Asahi, which is a Japanese one. They have offices here in the U.S., and a number of other ones. Pam Swiss being one from over in Switzerland. So, they manufacture. Those are the refiners and minters, and they manufacture products, and they provide the products to us, and we basically, we make a spread on that product, and we make a market both directions. So when people want to sell, we're absolutely happy, and we're always posting a bid price. So we'll buy it from you at this price.
Gotcha.
Right. So we don't, in our business. In most precious metals businesses, they're making a two-way market, but not all of them. Some of them will only sell products. Anything we sell to a customer, we're happy to buy back. Now the price changes because it's a financial product. It moves up and down with the market.
Right.
But, so I can't tell you what the price is going to be in the future. I can just tell you that we will make a market for it.
Right.
Whatever that product may be.
Right. Interesting. So there are actual physical assets that are also here on property, right? That you literally have bullion and whatnot that you're holding within the walls of this building.
Correct. We which is why we have our own state police officers here, et cetera.
I was going to ask about that because there's a Texas Bullion Depository police force.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting too. I was like, okay, that's interesting.
And then our own security team and other security protocols that I'm not going to go into.
Oh, I wouldn't expect you to.
But yes, we do have our own state police here on site. That is part of the Comptroller of Public Accounts Criminal Investigation Division, which is the Texas Bullion Depository Police. But they're here every day. They work here on site, monitoring things, keeping tabs on things. And
now, are those your employees or are those state?
That is an employee of the state of Texas.
Okay.
So, and they are, they're overseeing what's happening at the Bullion Depository operations, et cetera, making sure that quite frankly, all those client assets are safe and where they say they are, and everything is on the up and up. Lone Star is responsible for operating the operations of the depository, and we do participate in that security apparatus together as a team with the state. But we love the fact that the way this is set up, where we are able to operate this depository, but it's the state's agency, and they have oversight over it. So it's so much, when we go to market, or if I'm talking to a client about the services offered at the Bullion Depository, I can always more or less say, look, don't take my word for it. The state of Texas is watching over our shoulder all the time. So, versus any other option you have in the market where it's just some private company,
right?
And you're depending on their word or what they post on their website. And look, they may be fine, but in our case, we actually have someone looking over our shoulders, saying, no, we're auditing you, we're checking you all the time.
Right.
So I think it's great for the market.
I would agree. Yeah. If I were investing in this particular area, that would be something that would appeal to me.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, okay, hey, there's some additional oversight here, there's some additional security here per se, and then you've really kind of got the good faith of the state of Texas behind it too.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So, Proposition 9. All right, I know, and I did a little bit of research. I know that it passed here in Texas by a slim margin. All right, so how did that benefit you guys? What difference did that make to this? I know earlier we talked about the establishment of the state depository, but that was before Prop 9.
Right.
So Prop 9, how did that make a difference to what you guys were trying to do?
Sure, it's a good question. And Prop 9, I think, was a little ambiguous for everybody. It wasn't. Well, it was for me, even as someone who helped get Proposition 9, on the ballot. We went and looked out at all you need to know from a legal perspective, everything you need to evaluate from the Bullion Depository, how to make it successful. And we noticed that there was some ambiguity in the law around property taxes for a customer, potentially an institutional customer, a large institutional customer, storing metal at the Bullion Depository. And while we believed, and I say we meaning, our organization, Lone Star, working with the state, and all those folks that know what they're doing at the state level, right, reading the laws, saying, we believe that there's no property tax on these assets, on the metal itself, but let's just go ahead and make sure
that there won't be.
There's no ambiguity.
Okay.
It is absolutely clear. There's no property tax on it, just in case somebody tried to interpret something differently than the way we're reading it. Because in other states like New York, it is unequivocally, it's disambiguous. There's no property tax on precious metals, right? And we wanted to make sure that we weren't at a disadvantage to those other states as we were getting the Bullion Depository up and moving. So we, drafted Proposition 9, got on the ballot, and it passed, I think, by a slim margin. I think because the way, when you read just the synopsis of it, it just sounds like, hey, you're taking property taxes away from something. But the reality was, the state wasn't earning any money on that, or the local community wasn't earning any money on that anyway, because the Bullion Depository is so new, there wasn't that many assets in there anyway. And what we didn't want was people to not use the facility because they were worried
that there would be
property tax. They would just go to another location out of state, and then we would lose all the tax basis for the growth of our organization, the Bullion Depository, et cetera, because we couldn't get business. Now, it actually affected the whole state, so someone doesn't just have to use the Texas Bullion Depository to get that benefit. They could use any depository in the state of Texas, and it's a statewide law now. So again, we weren't really concerned about it before, but we just didn't want there to be any ambiguity. So we cleared it up.
No, I think that's smart. I think and again, this is one of those areas that I don't have a whole lot of expertise on, but I've been involved with a couple of committees, even here just locally, and it always makes me, really think, because language is so important there, because it's not necessarily what it says, it's almost sometimes what it doesn't say.
Yeah.
And in this case, that was the instance. It didn't say that, so you couldn't exclude it, and by creating Proposition 9 and getting it ultimately passed, you close that loophole. Essentially.
If there even was one,
right?
Just
right.
Want to
just want to make sure that there wasn't one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Correct. It worked out great.
I appreciate you taking some time for me today and answering some of these questions.
I'm more than happy to.
I thought
Glad to be here.
Was super interesting.
It was a short commute for me, so
right. Well, I'm not too far away either, so it wasn't too bad. But I really appreciate it, and I thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you very much.
Do you have any kind of plugs? Hey, we need a few more folks over here. Do you want to send them to a website or anything like that?
I should know that website. The HR department would know it.
All right,
but we are hiring. So
look up the U.S. Gold Bureau if you're interested. I've seen a few of their positions come across my desk over the past 3 years. I think a great place to probably find yourself if this is the type of stuff that you like to do, and great folks out here. So I appreciate it again, Matt.
Thanks for the time. Thank you very much.
That's episode 25. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did like this, feel free to share it on your social medias with your friends and neighbors. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that like button on YouTube and Facebook, respectively. And if you're the audio type of folks, there's several different podcast mechanisms where you can download just the audio of Lean and Leander. So I hope you're enjoying what we're doing here. Look forward to the next episode, and we'll see you then. Thanks so much.